Welcome everybody. Today we are here to see how to choose and to set up the perfect Sidemount for you. Today we have Joram, who is usually behind the camera, but I decided to drag him in front of it just for a moment, just to say hi, because without Joram I couldn't do any of this, okay? So I'm gonna leave a link in the description also to see where they can see your work, okay? And then I want to introduce you to a little friend.
Thank you, guys.
Now he's gonna go behind the camera to make sure that I don't mess this thing up, which I probably will. This is our model for today. His name is Manny Queen, you know, because it's a mannequin. To choose and set up your side mount, you have to follow 3 steps. Number 1, you have to decide what kind of dives you want to do with it. Cave or ocean, just using your 2 main tanks. Most side mount can do that. Maybe you want to go for multi-stage diving, where you want to carry 4, 5, 6, 7 tanks. So you need a lot of lift. Or maybe you want to have a side mount that can also go into very small restrictions where you remove your tanks, and you want to have a system that is very low profile, you almost don't feel that you have it on. The step number 2, you're going to choose the side mount according to the mission that we just talked about. And we have to consider the lift of the wing. If we are very, very small people, the wing can almost wrap around us completely, and it's not going to be, you cannot use it very well. You're going to have a smaller wing, but it's also going to have less lift. Now, if you use a dry suit, you can compensate part of the lift with the suit, but this is a decision that you're going to have to take. And then we have to consider the options to adjust it. Specifically, we speak about the plates. Do you have 2 separated back plates that we can move according to our body height, or is just one bulky soft plate that the distance between the shoulder straps and the waist strap cannot change? Very important. Number 3 is when we actually go to set it up and configure it for our needs. When it's time to set up the equipment, we have to follow 2 rules. Number 1, you have to understand what you cannot change. You cannot change your body, you cannot change the lift of the wing, and you cannot change the mission. Not anymore. You already bought the side mount for a specific purpose, and that's gonna be what you're gonna use it for. Rule number 2, you have to understand what you can change, okay? Now, here is time to find the best compromise between effectiveness, so the ability of your wing, of your side mount to accomplish the task you bought it for, and ergonomics. So you have to set it up in a way that is comfortable, that you like to feel it on you when you're diving. So we have to find the best compromise and reach the best efficiency. Now it's time to adjust your side mount. Depending on which model you buy, might come in a box in pieces or might be already set up, and you just have to adjust it. Now, I'm going to consider for these videos side mounts with 2 different plates for the shoulder and for the lower back. Now, you have one element where you adjust the shoulder strap, and another one with the spine in between, where you adjust, of course, as well the shoulder straps and the waist and the crotch strap. Now, we do not want to compress our neck here in this area, okay? Very, very bad. What we want to do is we want to use our trap because it can take much more stress. So, especially if we carry a lot of stages, so they're gonna pull us from the straps. If this is too close to our neck, it's gonna compress it here, as you can see. Instead, if I put the plate a little bit lower, look what happened. You see, now we are working on the trap. Now, obviously, we don't want these too low, otherwise also our wing can go too much down, okay? Because our wing, you know, if we have a wing that is not attached, we can place it to control the trim as we want. But many side mount, especially for multi-stage, the wing is attached to the plate and is also attached on the bottom after the plate on our back. So there is a very important relationship between the position of the plate and when the wing go. So if we have the wing too high, we have too much lift on the top and we compress our neck. If we put the wing too low, it's okay for our neck because it's not gonna be compressed, but the wing is too low on our butt. So we need a good balance. What I prefer to do is to have my plate right here under the bone here of the neck, right there. So the webbing can work on the trap and is not compressing the neck, but at the same time, the attachment of the wing is not gonna be too low. Let's have a look at the plate of our back. Here, we do not want to compress the lower back in this area, our rectus spinae. This muscle is for stability, it's not meant to carry a lot of weight. What can carry all the weight of the tank is the gluteus minor here. So we want the waist under the line of our hip bones. This means that our webbing is gonna be placed here like that instead of here. What's the advantage? Now, with our plate in this position here, like this, when we put our tanks on, very important, especially if you're a short person. Let's say we have the tank under the armpit. We don't want the bottom of the tank to be too low, of course, too close to the knees. And we also don't want that if the webbing is too high, also the D-ring that attached to the tanks are here, so the bands on our tanks are gonna be very, very high. And this means that when the tank becomes positive, it's gonna swing a lot. Instead, with the bands low, because the waist is low, the tanks are gonna swing just a little bit. You just have to stretch the spine, basically, to position the plates properly. Now it's time to add or remove D-rings, or of course, if you take the Sidemount in pieces from the box, you have to put it together. Now, we don't need to get crazy about where to place the D-rings exactly because we still have to adjust the webbings. We just want to put them in all the shoulder strap, the waist strap, all the D-rings, also the plates for the light on the crotch strap, okay? We want to place everything. I recommend you to have a couple of tools with you. The first one are the pliers, because when you want to pass it inside the slider, sometimes can be a little bit difficult, and having pliers to pull them out can be very helpful. At the same time, you want to have a screwdriver, because if you want to remove them, especially if it is an old harness and the webbing already has memory, you can jam the screwdriver inside and then you can pull it. Super easy. This is the easiest way to adjust the position of the D-rings. Another recommendation that I can give you is about the webbing of the where you have the buckle, okay? Now, I never pass it in the last passage like this, because honestly, guys, it's just a pain in the ass. I leave it like this, it's never gonna move, and it's super easy if I want to readjust it to change the length. Now we can start to speak about the webbing, and guys, I'm gonna use this Sidemount for this example. This Sidemount originally had the same webbing from the spine to the crotch strap and was very, very hard, the one of the crotch strap, and already cut a couple of suits. So I recommend you always to have a soft webbing for the crotch, and you can have an hard one for the rest of the harness. Like this, you don't destroy your suit, but it's gonna be robust for the rest of the body, and it's gonna be soft in between your legs. The first part of the webbing that we want to adjust is the spine, because of course, the length of the spine is going to determine where we place our plates. Now, when we adjust the length of the spine, we also have to adjust the straps of the shoulder, because the longer the spine gets, the longer we must make also the shoulder. The easiest part to adjust is going to be the waist strap, because even if it is too long, it's going to be folded inside the buckle, and the exceeding part under the buckle is just going to be hidden under the waist. The last part that we are going to adjust is going to be the crotch. If you have a plate very low on your back, the crotch strap is going to be very, very short, much shorter than what you used to have, for example, if you used to dive back mount. Let's put the Sidemount on Manny and let's see what adjustment we will have to do. Money being short, we need to have the wing here and the plate will go very close to his neck because he's short. When we prepare the spine, we also have to take in consideration later how the wing is going to look like. And we can also see a lot of slack on the spine because, of course, this is my Sidemount and Manny is a little bit shorter than me. So definitely we will have to make the spine shorter. Look at this. Also, the webbing of the shoulder is going to get shorter. You see, should be at this point. And then you can adjust the waist, and lately you can adjust the crotch strap. The next thing we want to adjust is the wing. Now, if we properly place the spine, the wing should not be too low. But because Manny is very short, of course, he would have to put the top plate a little bit higher, very close to the neck, not too much. So the wing is not going to be too low on his butt. The second adjustment on the wing is the bungees and clips that we put to attach it. This Sidemount has one clip only that goes inside the crotch strap. And to make it easier, I made several knots because when I float at the surface, I don't want to have it too tight. And when I'm diving and I want to have a more streamlined profile, I can make it tighter. So now I have 1, 2, and 3 different adjustments for the bungee. To put the ball snap on the bungee, the easiest thing is to just pass it like this. Easy. Because when you're not using the Sidemount, this part of the bungee is not going to be stressed. Because if you do it like I have in this old rental equipment, if you pass it inside like this, and then you fold it inside, this part of the bungee is going to be stressed even when it's not in tension, and eventually the elastic fibers inside are going to break. That's why this solution is much better. Now I want to show you which kind of knots you can do to hold the bungee loop in the webbing like in this model of Sidemount, but because here is very small and it's all black, I prefer to show it to you here. Let's pretend that this part of the webbing now is this one in the wing, and let's pretend that this rope is the bungee. I pass it inside. Of course, I already put the clip just inside like this. Now, the other extremity of the rope, I'm going to put it inside from the other side. We are going to make one knot on the rope like this, and another rope on the knot, another knot on the rope on the other side, and then we are just going to pull it. When we go to pull the rest, this one is going to stay here, hidden inside the webbing. And when we are diving, it's going to look like this, super clean, with no possibility that this is going to snag on something in the cave. If you look at this, is exactly what I've done. The last part on the harness that we want to adjust is the bungee that retains the tanks. Now, here we are going to have our shoulder D-ring, which is going to be close to our pectoral, and the retainer for the bungee has to be under the armpit. The bungee loop that is attached on your spine has to be able to stretch halfway your arm because this is the length that you need to go around the tanks. The precise adjustment of the bungee is something that we do after we try it underwater. That's why it's very important to don't cut it, leave it long, exceeding from the back, like a little antenna, doesn't matter. You just put a stop knot. After you try a bunch of times underwater how it is to attach the tanks and the tanks are not moving too much, then you know if you can cut it or not. Now it's time to have a look at the light holder. The light holder for the canister must be right under the line on your butt, a little bit far away from the butt D-ring where you attach your reels. And here we can also see exactly at which distance we want to keep the wing, because the wing doesn't have to hang, like, for example, too low. So we're going to be able to see the wing, the D-ring on the butt, 3-4 fingers of distance, and here in the line of your butt, we're going to have the light holder. As a bonus now, I'm going to give you a tip about the pouch. Now, if you are very tall, you can use very long double enders for the pouch. If you are a little bit shorter or if you have your waist strap very low, I recommend you to have shorter double ender so the pouch doesn't hang too low. Let's have a look with Manny. Manny is short, so we take small double enders. When we attach them on the pouch, if the pouch is still hanging too low, what we can do, we can put the offset D-ring a little bit more outside so that the pouch is gonna be, imagine that the double enders are attached to the D-ring offset a little bit more outside, they go diagonal and the pouch goes out a little bit. Thank you guys for following me until the end, and I will see you on the next episode where we put together the tanks and the regulator, and hopefully nothing is gonna blow up. Guys, I leave you with a couple of recommendations. First, you have to become excellent at making compromises, okay? It's always about ergonomics and effectiveness, so efficiency. And the other thing is super important. Always have a reason for what you do. For every change you want to do in equipment, have a reason. In the last episode, we saw how to choose and set up your side mount for a specific mission according to your body size. Today we will see how to prepare the regulators and the tanks, and then how to properly connect them to your harness. As usual, Manny is here to help us, and because I want him to be happy, I decided to give him a head. Yes, that's all it takes. Luckily for you, I did it off screen. My goal is to help you choose the hoses of the right length, so you don't end up like me with a bucket full of hoses that you don't know if you're ever gonna use again. And then we must learn how to use any kind of tank that we might find in your diving trips. To choose and set up your tanks and regulators, we must find the best compromise between streamlining and comfort, depending on the kind of dives that we want to do and our body size. To do that, we need to follow 5 steps. Step number 1 is choosing your equipment. Now, if you travel a lot, you will want to have a travel hose retainer. This is just the cam band of a BCD with a clip attached to it, which is perfect to put the on and off every day on your rental tanks. If you have your own tanks instead, you can use a fixed hose clamps. This is stainless steel, very important. Also, the screw has to be stainless steel. And what is very, very important, regardless which one of these you want to use, is that the length of the clip and the rope that you attach to it has to allow to fit your forearm between your body and the tanks, so as to be at least of this length. Next, you want to consider which kind of hose retainers you want to use. You can have soft one or harder ones. This is just the inner tube of a tire. It's a little bit more difficult to stow the hose and pull it out, but it holds it much better on the tank than the soft ones. Honestly, guys, this is just up to you. They both work. Buy whatever you want. Let's have a look at the regulators now. We want to choose proper side mount regulator. So the first stage is going to be thin and balanced. If it is piston or membrane, that's up to you. What is very, very important is that you choose a model with a swivel turret so we can properly rotate the hoses around our neck. On the left post, we want to have the inflator hose, the short hose with the necklace, and the SPG. On the right post, we're going to have a long hose and the SPG. If you do solo diving or you dive only with the side mount divers, you're not going to need a long hose. You're going to put a short hose also on the right post. It's very important that you choose a second stage where you can invert the position of the hose, because you don't want it coming from here, you want it coming from this side. Another very important detail is the use of elbows. I like the elbows because it's gonna keep the hose nicely around my neck instead of making a big, big loop. Especially important if I want to go into restrictions anyway, guys. It looks better, it's more comfortable, just use the elbows. Now, the last thing is maybe you will need another inflator hose for the right post if you have a dry suit or a BCD with 2 bladders. By the way, if you have a BCD with 2 bladders, you should know that the second one is not going to stay connected. Otherwise, if you have a self-inflation of the wing, you don't know which one of the 2 wings is inflating. Very important. Leave it disconnected. Step number 2 is choosing the position of the tanks. How I'm gonna place the tanks on my body? Let's focus on the first stage for now. I can have the first stage flat in front of my chest here, or 45 degrees, almost vertical sometimes, here under my armpit, which is gonna be also not more far away, but also lower. As you can imagine, this is gonna affect the length of the hoses that I want to buy. Of course, we speak about the short hose for the second stage. Now, the first stage in front of me is good to reach the valve, to read the SPG. If I have it here, it's a little bit more difficult to reach them, but it's more streamlined because the tanks are not going to pop in front of me. They're going to be hiding under my shoulder. Now, if you're a very short person, you might have no choice. You're going to have to keep the first stages here because otherwise the tank is going to exceed the length of their knees and it's going to drastically affect their trim. Now we have a look at the position of the clip on the tank to attach it to the harness. First, the height. When we place the band on the tanks, we have to leave them almost at the same level of the waist strap, a little bit lower, hopefully always before half of the tank, because this is gonna affect our trim. And the clip has to be pointing upward because this is how it's gonna pull. Now we want to see the rotation of the clip on the tank to attach it. Let's start with what happens with an aluminum tank if you want to put it flat in front of us like this. The clip is going to be from the center of the tank here, is going to be basically closer to the back than to half of the tank. Of course, it also depends on the length of the clip, so there are a lot of variables, so you have to allow me for a little bit of margin of error. If instead I want to have the tank 45 degrees under my armpit, the clip is gonna be rotating much closer to the side of the tank. Now let's pretend that this is a steel tank. Steel tanks are heavier, and so we don't manage to make them rotate too much with the bungee. They're basically just gonna hang. So instead of the D-ring, usually we attach them on the offset D-ring on the butt, or at least we will have to put this D-ring very close to our back. So because it's gonna hang almost like a stage, to have the tank flat, the clip is gonna be perfectly in line with the front of the tank. Of course, we always need some flexibility because of the length of the clip. If instead we want to have our tank hanging 45 degrees, we're gonna have to move it a little bit towards the side where we have the valve knob, like this, tack, and then it's gonna attach to the back of our harness. After all, you have to try underwater to see if it really works or not. This is just an indication of what you need. Step number 3 is going for shopping, which is the best part, at least for the dive shop. We already know if we want to put the first stage on our chest or under our armpit. We already took this decision. So we go to choose our balance first stage with the DIN connection and the swivel turret. And once we have it in our hands, we put it under our armpit or in front of our chest. We put the hose around our neck because now we have to measure if it is long enough. If, for example, I want to put it under my armpit, the hose must allow me to look up and on the same side of the first stage that I'm trying, okay? So up, right, in this case. I must be able to comfortably look around with my head without the hose being tight on my neck. This is how you decide. Now, the inflator hose for the Sidemount, they're fairly standard, so just buy one and see if it works. What we have to check is the SPG, okay? Because if we buy a short, high-pressure hose for the SPG, like for a stage tank, which will be in front of you, this one, we don't need to bend it all the way because the stages are in front of us, so it can be short. It bends like making an L, just a little bit. But the Sidemount is going to be, even if it is in front of us, the SPG is going to be behind our back. So the hose must be much longer. What I must be able to do is to bend it like a U, not just like a L, like this. Must be like a U, because this allows me to read it without too much effort. We arrive to step number 4, which is preparing our tanks. Now, I'm going to set up these tanks as I use them, which means under my armpit, tilted 45 degrees. First, we're going to put the rigs, then the hose retainers, and then we put on the regulators. Let's start. You probably didn't notice, but I'm gonna tell you anyway. My hose clamps are in pairs, left and right, but because I'm a genius, I made a mistake and I brought two left pairs. So now one has the cam on this side and the other one is all on the other side, so sorry. Basically, the point of using the cams with the Velcro, you want to have the Velcro as much as possible protected against your body. This is why it's important to have one left and one right. Anyway, let's see about the equipment setup. Let's start with our main regulator, which is the left post. As you can see, I don't use any hose retainer on this tank because I just wrap the necklace around the first stage. For the left one, I used the soft bands now to show you what happens with the second stage that is going to hang a little bit, but you know, we can deal with that. Now, about the rotation of the hose in the bands when I stow it, it's very important that regardless if I put it clockwise or counterclockwise, when I deploy it underwater, I deploy this part has to go up like this near the swivel turret, because if you accidentally pass it like this under the SPG, then it's going to be impossible to deploy it properly, and the bungee of the tank is going to wrap around it. Very, very bad. So important is, regardless how you route your tank, you have to make sure that this part is on this side of the SPG to avoid entanglement. Step number 5, adjusting the harness. We're going to see how to move the D-rings and adjust the bungee according to how we decide to place the tanks. Now, first of all, guys, if you have sliding D-rings, it doesn't matter because, you know, they slide. If you have fixed D-rings, now, depending on the size of your waist, you want to have them. If you're very big, they're going to be far away from the belly button. And if you are very, very skinny, you can put them very close to the belly button, to the buckle, okay? If you use steel tanks, I already told you, you're going to attach them probably in the offset D-rings on the butt. Now, for the bungee, here it depends if we use the tanks in the front or under the armpit, because this harness is set to have the tanks under the armpit, so the bungee retainer is very low. If instead we put the tanks in front of us flat, the only thing we have to do is to move this up here, or even attach the bungee directly to the slider where we have the D-rings. There is a difference in attaching the bungee to the tank depending if I want the valve flat or under my armpit. In this case, let's say if I want to keep it flat in front of me, the bungee has to go under the SPG like this, and then it's gonna go all the way around and connect here to the stem of the dry valve, the plug of the modular valve. If instead I want the tanks to be 45 degrees, like this, then the bungee is gonna go outside the SPG and then connect here like before. That's it. That's the only difference. If when you go on vacation, you don't find the modular valves for your Sidemount tanks and you have only the normal K valves for rent, the challenge is to attach the bungee, especially on the left tank, because on the right one, it's not really a big deal. The bungee is gonna go on the knob and that's it. It's gonna look normal. Now, on the left side here, if we have a little bit of protrusion for the burst disc, we can attach the bungee like this, as we will do on the modular valve. But if this part is flat inside, instead of being like this, we are gonna have to go around the SPG, and then we have to pass inside, going around, and putting it around the knob. We don't have a choice. Does it work? Yes. Is it gonna be perfect? Of course it's not gonna be perfect, but it's better than a kick in the butt. So, good luck. As a bonus, I'm gonna give you a tip about the SPG. If you have the tanks under your armpit and you struggle to reach it to read it, what you can do is to keep the first stage canted a little bit, like 10-15 degrees, and now the SPG is gonna be easier to reach under your armpit. That's it for today. Thank you for following us until the end, and I will see you in the next episode where we do the underwater trial and hopefully we don't drown. Now guys, remember, it's always better to have a hose 2 inches longer than 2 inches shorter. Then you also have to know how to use it, but that's another story. Welcome everybody. Today we complete our Sidemount setup with the underwater trials and final adjustments. The underwater model for today, or better, my personal lab rat, is gonna be Mauro.
Welcome, everybody.
If you've been diving with Ghost Divers before, you might already had the pleasure to meet him. Mauro was also helping me during my world record and is a technical cave instructor, a technical side mount instructor. Today he's gonna pretend to be using the side mount for the first time. Before getting in the water, we want to have a look at the equipment that we prepared for you, the equipment that I am using, and what to inspect underwater. Let's have a look at Mauro's setup. Turn around, please. The shoulder plate, we just must make sure that it's not painful on his neck, and for him, this configuration is okay. For the lower back plate, or better, the level of the waist strap, we just want to have it under the hip bone, and for him, this is comfortable enough, so we leave it like this for now. The wing of this side mount can be moved up and down a little bit to adjust the trim. So for now, we don't need to get crazy about it because we just have to check it underwater to make sure that it can be horizontal. We just want to make sure that it's fairly tight. Also that the crotch strap is fairly tight, but not too much. In this setup, Mauro has fixed D-rings, so he's gonna have to change from the top one to the lower one when the tanks become positive because we use aluminum tanks. This is the setup I use today, and this is how it's different from the one of Mauro. My shoulder plate is much lower on my back, and also my waist strap is much lower on my hip bones than Mauro has, because for me it's more comfortable like this, and also like to attach my tanks as low as possible instead of having them up here. Now, my wing is retained on the shoulder strap, which means that cannot be adjusted to modify the trim underwater. Instead of fixed D-ring, I have sliding D-rings. And then I also have a couple of fixed D-rings here, but honestly, I'm not gonna need to use them today, so I can just change the trim of my tanks like that. Let's have a look at the tanks now. Both Mauro and I are using the tanks rotated 45 degrees under the armpit, but I asked Mauro to place a short hose on the right tank, and I have the long hose instead, okay? Now, short hose is just for side mount team or solo diving, long hose if you dive in a mixed team. But what I want to show you is this. The left tank that has the short hose as the inflator is the most stable on the body when we place the bungee, where the long hose with no inflator, and because the hose comes from here instead of from here and around the neck, these tanks can move a lot underwater even if the bungee is properly placed. Now, Mauro doesn't have an inflator here because he's using a wetsuit today, but he has a short hose on this side. So his tank is gonna move a little bit less than mine because the hose comes directly here from the first stage around the neck. So it's a little bit more stable than when you have the long hose. Now we have to consider what we need to check underwater. About the harness wing setup, we need to check if there is any slack once Mauro is underwater in the proper body posture, if there is any slack with the harness or with the wing, especially on the butt, because it is going to inflate and move. So we need to check that it's nice and tight on his body. Then we also need to check not just the buoyancy, but the trim. So maybe we move the wing up and down a little bit, but we can also put weights in the pouch. And what I really love to use just the first day in confined water is a clip weight, because we can quickly remove them, place them in other places, and then later we change them for, of course, weights in the pockets. What we need to check about the tanks is the trim, which depend on the position of the D-ring in our waist strap, the rotation of the tanks on our body, which depend on the position of the clip and the tension of the bungee, and then the height of the tank on our body under the armpit, which depend on the height of the rig on the tank itself. To give Mauro a direct feedback about his equipment, I'm gonna film him with my phone. I can show him what happens underwater, or I can show him at the surface. It depends on the situation. Guys, I already made a video about this housing. I think it's a great tool for confined water training. Go check it out. We are finally ready for the best part, which is getting in the water, because as we all know, best things in life are wet. After this first confined water, we saw what we have to adjust. His harness is basically fine. Looks like you used it before. The only thing that we have to adjust is the position of the tanks, because we said that we want to keep them under the armpit, almost right at the 45 degrees, and they were a little bit too high and almost flat, and the bungee was was too long. So now we have to do the bungee shorter, move the position of the retainers of the bungee a little bit down, and then we have to adjust the tanks. Let's start with the adjustment of the bungee, and then we continue with the tank. We are going to make the bungee shorter, considerably shorter. We tried to leave it long before because it seems to be comfortable, but now underwater we realize it's really, really too long. So we're going to just move the stop knot like this. And now it should arrive to the elbow at least. It should be able to be pulled in front of you. Okay. It cannot be tighter than this. This is as tight as we can do it. And now we have to move the bungee retainer a little bit lower. Like this. Okay? Because the bungee should not be hitting right under the armpit. It should be a little bit lower. Before it seemed to be okay, but that's why we have to try underwater. The adjustment we have to do on the tank is to open the rig, pull it a little bit up, and then rotate it a little bit inside. Not a lot, just a little bit. This is going to allow the tank to rotate a little bit more, and it's also going to be a little bit lower, so it's not going to hit the armpit. It's going to be more comfortable. Try again to pull the bungee. Okay.
Okay.
It cannot be tighter than that. It's very tight. And you have these beautiful antennas on your back. But that's normal. It's part of the process. Now, we did the adjustment. Let's go in the water and let's see what happened. We did it, finally. Mauro, thank you for your help. We managed to make the Sidemount work the way we intended, and maybe after a few dives you can still decide to use it in a different ways. You know, the position of the tanks, the one we tried today works today. Maybe in a few dives you decide you want to try something different. Thank you guys for watching us, and keep doing experiments with your equipment. Remember, the best feedback is always to watch yourself in a video, especially if behind the camera there is a friend of you who makes fun of all the bullshit you do. You can still try something new and figure it out that, wow, maybe you like it better. No me recuerdo. Viste, dije demasiadas pendejadas y me perdí.